Bienvenue. Bonsoir et bienvenue à cette soirée de consultation publique sur la sécurité nautique sur une section de la rivière Gatineau. Welcome everybody to this evening of a boating safety public consultation for a section of the Gatineau River. Quelques mots d'introduction et nous allons ensuite commencer. Moi, je m'appelle Lynne Berthiaume et je suis votre animatrice ce soir. My name is Lynne Berthiaume and I'm your facilitator this evening and I'm very pleased to be part of this. Nous sommes tous ici ce soir avec un but commun en ce qui concerne une rivière qui nous tient à cœur. Nous voulons nous rassembler et nous assembler pour nous assurer la pérennité de cette belle rivière, sa santé et qu'elle continue d'offrir à tous les usagers des moments de beauté et de plaisir d'une façon sécuritaire et qui assure la pérennité et la santé de la rivière. We're each of us here today for a common purpose around a river we love, to come together to ensure the Gatineau River continues to thrive and provide all of its users with moments of beauty and pleasure in a safe and healthy manner. Ce soir, je vous invite et nous vous invitons d'offrir une écoute attentive et active et d'offrir votre input constructive et de façon respectueuse. Tonight, we invite you to listen attentively and actively and offer your input in a constructive and respectful manner. C'est à noter que c'est une première opportunité de consultation. Il y en aura d'autres. This is the first opportunity for consultation. There will be others. Et assurément, il y aura des suivis à cette soirée dont on vous parlera à la fin de la soirée. And there will certainly be follow-up to this meeting and we'll talk a bit about that towards the end of the meeting. Quelques éléments de logistique pour la soirée. Nous débutons maintenant et la soirée devrait se terminer à 9 h. Cependant, s'il y a beaucoup d'intérêt, ça nous fera plaisir de continuer jusqu'à 9h30. We're here from 7 to 9 p.m. and if there's interest, we're pleased to go to 9:30. Parlons un peu de bilinguisme. Ce soir, toute la documentation, incluant un PowerPoint qui servira à toute la soirée, est bilingue. Les présentations se feront peut-être un peu plus en anglais. Cependant, sentez-vous à l'aise d'offrir vos questions soit en anglais ou en français et on vous répondra dans la langue en anglais ou en français. In terms of bilingualism this evening, all the documents on the website, Friends of the Gatineau website are bilingual, and the PowerPoint presentation, which is the guide for this evening, is bilingual as well. Most of the presentations will be in English, some will be bilingual. Please offer your questions in the language of your choice, and we'll answer them in that language. This session is being recorded and will be available on the Friends of the Gatineau site sometime in the near future. Please note everyone is muted right now, and we'll talk about the logistical flow for the questions. Bon, la session, nous sommes en train de faire un enregistrement de la session et ce sera disponible sur le site des Amis de la Gatineau prochainement. Tout le monde est sur mute jusqu'à ce que si vous voulez parler, on vous enlèvera de mute à ce temps-là. Bon, there are two functions that will help. There's a chat function at the bottom of your screen. The Zoom screen is a chat function. You can click on that and you can offer your own, you can offer any comments you wish in that chat function space. That is for comments. The Q&A, which is also at the bottom of your screen, is when you wish to ask a question. So please just note the difference between those two. Si vous avez des commentaires, s'il vous plaît, utilisez la fonction chat. Si vous voulez poser une question, s'il vous plaît, allez sur la fonction Q&A. Tous les deux sont au bas de votre écran. Et voilà, je pense que, donc, je vais juste parler rapidement du déroulement de la soirée. Nous allons avoir quelques remarques d'introduction par deux panélistes. Ensuite, nous allons avoir deux présentations. Les problèmes de sécurité et santé de la rivière, ensuite les solutions non réglementaires. we will have opening remarks by two panelists, and then we will have two presentations, one on safety and river health issues and the other one on solutions without changing regulations. At the end of each of those two presentations, there will be time for the presenter will be able to respond to questions that have been asked, that you have typed in the Q&As, and they'll respond to those. We will also be answering some of your questions as you write them. So it's the ones that we have not answered that the two presenters will respond to verbally after those presentations. Ensuite, nous allons avoir une pause et nous allons avoir le forum plus ouvert. Je pense que j'ai un peu perdu le fil. Je vais dire la même chose en français. C'est que les problèmes après chaque présentation, les questions qui ont été posées dans le Q&A, la fonction Q&A, seront répondues au fur et à mesure en dactylographia, en répondant. Ceux qui n'ont pas été répondus une réponse sera faite verbalement. Ensuite, on aura une pause. The open forum is broken down into two categories. The first one is there are about 14 people who signed up for this meeting today and told us that they wanted to speak. So those 14 will be asked to speak in chronological order, from the first one who submitted their request to speak to the final one. And following that period of time for each person, both presenters will respond verbally to those. Donc, après la pause, nous allons avoir une session ouverte qui va être commencée par, il y a environ 14 personnes qui se sont inscrites et qui ont indiqué qu'ils voulaient parler aujourd'hui. Donc, ces 14 personnes-là auront l'opportunité de parler. Et suivi de ça, après que les 14 ont parlé, les deux conférenciers vont répondre aux questions qui ont été posées dans ce temps-là. Et ensuite, nous allons ouvrir à n'importe qui voudrait offrir des questions. Ensuite, nous allons avoir évidemment la synthèse et les prochaines étapes, and we will close off with a summary and next steps. Donc, je pense que, Rita, is there anything that I've forgotten? Est-ce que j'ai oublié quelque chose dans les...
I just wanted to say also that this recording is, everything that's being said here will be actually published on our website. So, it is a public meeting. I just wanted to say, and we're recording as we speak.
Mm-hmm. Donc, parfait. Nous allons maintenant commencer et j'inviterai, nous avons Madame Carol Green qui est avec nous aujourd'hui et ensuite Rita Jane, les deux, je les invite à faire quelques mots d'introduction. Donc, Carol Green, comme pas mal tout le monde est au courant, est la mairesse de Chelsea depuis 12 ans et la préfète de la MRC depuis 4 ans aussi. Donc, Carole, c'est à vous.
Merci Lynn, thank you. Merci aux membres du CA de FOG, merci aux amis de la rivière Gatineau. I'm here to just say a very brief introduction on behalf of the MRC, but specifically the three municipalities that touch the Gatineau River. Alors, il y a la municipalité de Kentley, de La Pêche et de Chelsea qui ont signifié leur appui d'avoir des consultations sur la sécurité, surtout pour la rivière Gatineau, mais aussi pour la protection de l'environnement. So we've seen lots of changes over the years, going from more of a cottage presence to more full-time. And with that has come different pressures on the river. And so I think right now we're taking a pause to look at where we are and where we can go in the future, and together to find the best solutions for the river. Alors, comme Lindsay, on cherche des solutions durables. C'est pour la pérennité de notre rivière. And I believe a lot like we have the shared use on our roads for motorized and non-motorized vehicles, I think that we have to have a similar approach on the river So for the motorized and non-motorized vessels, the police have said that the greatest number of fines that they give out are to non-motorized users for safety concerns. I know there's a lot of concern about the speed in motorized vessels. So somehow I think together we need to have a conversation. We need to hear each other and hopefully come up with solutions for a shared use of this river that is so important to all of us. Alors, je remercie tout le monde qui sont ici présents ce soir et aussi les gens qui sont pas ici aujourd'hui, mais vont, je pense, regarder le recording, l'enregistrement qui est sur le site web et qui va continuer la conversation parce que c'est vraiment une discussion, une conversation ensemble pour trouver les solutions. So thank you, everyone.
Merci beaucoup, Madame Green. Thank you very much, Carol, for those remarks. Je demanderai maintenant à Madame Rita Jane de faire quelques paroles d'introduction. Et Madame Jane est la membre du CA, du conseil d'administration des Amis de la rivière Gatineau depuis 2017 et présidente du CA depuis 2019. So Rita Jane is a board member of the of Friends of the Gatineau since Gatineau River since 2017 and president of the board since 2019. So over to you, Rita.
Merci. Thank you. It's so nice to see so many people joining us and showing interest. I realize that we're in a group of people that love the Gatineau River, and we all want to make sure that we can enjoy it. So I'm so glad to see people turning up for the purpose of enjoying our beautiful Gatineau River. Just a quick overview for those of you that don't know who FOG is. Nous sommes les Amis de la rivière Gatineau. On est un organisme du non lucratif basé sur des bénévoles, so volunteer-based organization. And we work with community partners, whether it's municipalities, MRC, province, federal, other groups, to be the eyes, ears, and voice of the Gatineau River, since it is not able to express itself to us. Donc, on travaille avec tous les groupes et partenaires communautaires, mais on essaie d'être les yeux et les oreilles et la voix de la rivière pour être sûr qu'on prend soin d'eux. Can I have the next slide, please? Juste pour dire que les enjeux de la rivière sont un peu compliqués. At most rivers, it's not simple, the hierarchy of regulations and people involved. So in the case of the Gatineau River, we are involved, but the MRC is involved, the municipalities, the provincial minister, le ministère d'Environnement provincial, and of course, Transport Canada from the point of view of navigation. So that's why organizations like FOG exist, in order to bring all of the people together to talk about a common goal. C'est vraiment notre but, c'est de faire le lien entre tous les groupes. J'ai oublié en passant les citoyens qui font une grosse partie de comment on va prendre soin de la rivière. I also forgot to mention the citizens, which are the biggest part of this partnership, is how we're going to take care of this river. But our goal is to bring all the parties together to discuss and to work towards a common vision. Next slide, please. So just before starting, I just wanted to quickly give an overview of how we embarked into this process. So first of all, I should say that we were approached by a large number of citizens concerned about, first of all, shoreline erosion, and secondly, some of the traffic that has increased over the last 2 years, I would say, but specifically, the year of COVID and it's looking again like this is going to continue. Also some stakeholder groups that, you know, have spend a lot of time on the river, they also approached us. So we decided to consult with Transport Canada and see what can be done. And they have a very rigorous process that they have if you want to make any changes to the way the regulations of that are presiding over a river. So I try to, j'essaie de faire un sommaire le processus de Transport Canada. Ça commence avec des résolutions des municipalités et des MRC. So we went through there. After that, we had to do a kind of a preliminary assessment of the current situation, just a description of the area and issues, the kind of traffic we have, and whether this is even eligible to be a project under Transport Canada. So we've kind of gone to, we've gotten approval at this point, and now we are at our first consultation, which is the third dot. What's coming up ahead is, well, this consultation is about solutions without changing any regulations. And what we'd like to do this summer is try to implement as many solutions that we get out of this meeting and further consultations to see if we could find a way to, you know, just better share and manage the traffic on the river. Also, we're going to be collecting data and analyzing it to see, you know, whether it is actually a problem or if it's just perception. You know, it's better to have cold hard facts. So we'll be doing that. And then after all of this, you know, this period of trying all kinds of solutions that are non-regulatory, we'll see, and after we've analyzed all the data and of course published it, there'll be a series of consultations again about, you know, how to interpret the data and what we should do about it. And should we actually pursue any kind of changes? And if there were, then there would be a series of resolutions required from the municipalities and the MRC, and we would then apply, do the final application to Transport Canada. So that is the rigorous process that's described by Transport Canada, and we are currently at the third dot. On est présentement à la troisième étape, mais c'est un processus assez rigoureux qui est décrit en fait dans les documents. Vous voyez en bas, il y a deux liens pour les documents qui décrivent le processus et quoi faire. I've actually included the two links, English and French, to the whole process of the of this regulatory change if required. And ici, j'ai listé ici le sort des exemples de régulation ou des règlements qui peuvent être changés par Transport Canada. Et ça ne veut pas dire qu'on veut toutes les faire, mais c'est des exemples qui sont des opportunités qui existent dans ce processus. Next slide, please. So in terms of that process, this is the timeline. This is not the slide that I had. I had another slide. Is there another slide after this? There it is, yes. This is our timeline. Au mois d'avril, on a commencé avec notre application préliminaire, notre évaluation préliminaire, et on l'a soumis à Transport Canada et ça a été accepté. Présentement, on commence une campagne de sensibilisation au public et les collectes de données. So as of this summer, you know, this month, we're going to start a awareness campaign and start our data collection for this application. And highlighted is the consultation number 1, which is where we're at. And today, the purpose is to define the problem, you know, discuss and define the problem, and seek out some solutions that we could act together and implement this summer without any regulatory changes. So the next line is about implementing some of the solutions that we might hear today amongst the people that are speaking, and spend the summer trying to implement them. We, on our part, on FOG's part, we will continue the awareness campaign and the data collection all summer as well. And so we foresee in the fall, possibly 2 more consultations, or maybe more, depending on the need. But right now, we're just kind of focusing on or predicting 2. On pense d'avoir en automne 2 autres consultations. Après avoir fait la collecte de données et essayer notre campagne de sensibilisation et essayer d'autres solutions que non réglementaires cet été, on va faire une évaluation et on va discuter de l'état d'être et comment quel et comment on va avancer avec d'autres solutions. So the consultation 2 and 3 are basically about if regulatory changes are needed, that's when we would start talking about. Transport Canada a une date limite annuelle qui est au mois d'août de chaque année. On pensait qu'on n'avait pas assez de temps cette année pour tout faire. Alors, si on fait une application, ça se fait au mois d'août l'année prochaine. So that would be, since we didn't really have time to do all of our actions before the month of August, which is their Transport Canada's deadline, we're going to, if we need to, we're going to apply next year. And therefore, the changes, if there are any, would be the year after. So that's kind of the timeline that's dictated by Transport Canada. Question étape, next slide, please. So just to clarify the objective of this session, it's about safety on the river, but also the impacts of a recreational use on the river, on the health of the river. We're going to focus today on solutions without any changes on regulations, and talk about what kind of data should be gathered and how we can do that. So what's not included, for example, access rights, and we got comments about people talking about, docks, and so that's not included in this conversation. Anything to do with our monitoring, we're not going to talk about today. And really, we're not focusing on changes of the regulations today either. So next slide, please. So that's the end of mine. Thank you.
Excellent. Merci beaucoup, Rita. Thank you very much. Sur les problèmes, causes et impacts. The problems, causes, and impacts will be presented by Bob McCallum. A little bit about Bob. He's been a volunteer with Friends of the Gatineau for several years and the primary contributor to a number of projects so far in 2020 and 2021, including the 2030 Vision Survey, a new website, this particular project that we're talking about today, and a new sign at the Chelsea boat launch. So without further ado, Bob McCallum, qui a été impliqué depuis plusieurs années avec Friends of the Gatineau, les Amis de la rivière Gatineau, dont avec certains projets, dont le nouveau site web, ce projet en particulier ce soir, et le sondage sur la vision 2030 pour les Amis de la rivière Gatineau. Donc, Bob, over to you for your presentation. Following which we will have, sorry, just before you start, Bob, important de vous rappeler que pendant la présentation de Bob, s'il vous plaît, vous regardez au bas de votre écran. Si vous avez des questions, s'il vous plaît, allez dans Q&A, écrivez votre question et au courant de la présentation de Bob, Rita pourra répondre à certaines questions qui sont posées par écrit. Et à la fin, Bob regardera les questions qui n'ont pas été répondues et parlera verbalement à certaines questions. So just to clarify for everyone, while Bob is speaking, Rita, so please, while Bob is speaking, if you have any questions, please go to the bottom of your screen, click on Q&A and type your question. Rita, Jane will be monitoring those questions as Bob speaks, and she will answer those that she can. And then at the end of Bob's presentation, he will look through the questions that have not yet been answered and then respond verbally as much as he can this evening.
Lynn, to interrupt, but there were some questions about my presentation that.
Okay. Oh, there we go. Yes.
We forgot to do that.
Yes, I apologize for that, everyone. Désolé. Would you like to, Rita, have you looked through them?
Yeah, so there's one question for Mayor Green, actually.
Okay.
When Green mentioned that there are more infractions cited by police against self-propelled users, could she provide some context? Self-propelled infractions are typically for individual safety, while motorized users are putting the general public at risk. So I guess.
Well, in a meeting with FOG, with Rita and other members of your board, the police explained, some of the approaches that they've taken. And I think it was a little bit of a surprise that they said that they had given more warnings and tickets to people in non-motorized vessels, because often people aren't wearing, or they don't have a life jacket on a paddle board, or there was drinking. So that's a sort of activity that the police have been observing. They haven't been ticketing for speed, and I know that was a request from FOG to the police, is could there be an increased presence on the river for the speed on motorized vessels. So they explained that it's hard to actually monitor the speed because their boats are moving as well. So I think FOG might give a bit more of an explanation throughout this evening on that. And I think there was also a question about Cantley, if you'd like me to answer that one. So you're correct. The Cantley Council chose to remove the resolution that was giving support, moral support, to the Friends of the Gatineau to proceed with these consultations. However, the mayor chose to write a letter of support in her name, and the two municipalities, La Pêche and Chelsea, adopted resolutions of support. So you're correct, the Municipal Council of Cantley did not adopt a resolution.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Green. Now, Rita, there are other questions here. Well, I think, did you want to go through them? Are there particular?
I think the rest we can answer written. I'm just looking at them all.
Okay.
I think,
okay.
Yeah. And certain questions Bob will be answering in his presentation, so they'll.
Okay, and as we mentioned, Rita will be monitoring all the questions as Bob is presenting, so we'll be able to. She'll be answering some of them, and then Bob will speak to the others. Donc, nous passons maintenant à Bob McCallum, qui présentera, et en même temps, Rita va être à l'écoute de vos questions que vous envoyez par Q&A, la fonction Q&A, et elle répondra à certaines questions par écrit, et ensuite Bob répondra aux autres à la fin de la présentation. Donc, over to you, Bob, now for your presentation.
Thank you, Lynn, and hello, everyone. So the Rigorous Transport Canada process requires that we, as Rita has explained, conduct research, gather data, run consultations. And regarding the problem, we not only have to identify the problem, they want a rigorous treatment of the root causes of the problem and the impacts of the specific problem. So we really have to do some analysis of that to thoroughly understand that whole problem issue. and some of the impacts also need to address all the potential areas, including safety, the environment, and the public interest. They identify. In public interest, they mean, for example, the cost to repair eroded roadbeds, repair damaged docks, that sort of thing. So what I'm going to do in this section is really, we've done some initial analysis and research and gathered relevant information. We're going to present that, and it's where we are so far. There's more work to be done through the summer, as has been mentioned. And we really want constructive questions, comments, presentations on these topics tonight. And I'd also like to point out that we've created on our website a dedicated page, sort of like a project portal page for this project. You should be able to find it easily from our homepage. There's a prominent link to it, where all the information has been posted already that we've we made public, past presentations, that preliminary assessment form that was mentioned, that was submitted to Transport Canada. There was a question about that. That's a link to it there. Everything that we do is going to be publicly available there. The other thing that is on that portal site is a form, invitation to make submissions. So tonight is just one aspect of the public consultation, and there's limited time and opportunity for maybe people to attend and speak and so forth. So that's an ongoing open forum throughout the process for anybody interested to make a submission. And it's just a simple form, your name and your comments, questions. And we're looking for, again, constructive input, and where possible, please cite research and facts. You'll see in my presentation I try to be as fact-based and reference third-party research as much as possible. Please do the same if you have other supporting information or alternative points of view or something to expand on this analysis that we need to do together. And every submission will be made public as well. So everything is public. Next slide, please. So let's start with the statement of the main problems as we understand them at this point. And many of you may be familiar with the survey, the 2030 Vision Survey that we did this spring and presented at the FOG AGM, and the results have been on our website for a while. The survey was broad-based in all aspects of river stewardship, water quality, shoreline protection, invasive species, et cetera. And it included some questions related to boating safety that are relevant today. One of the questions was about, and the question in full was, in your opinion, how dangerous is it for river users given the current speed limits, which are 55 kilometers an hour beyond 30 meters from shore and 10 kilometers an hour within 30 meters from shore? So, as you can see, of 679 responses, we have quite a few, over half of the people rated the problem as very serious, meaning someone could get seriously injured or killed. So more than half the people think this is a great problem. Another 35% rated it as a moderate problem. And only 13% of people don't think there's a problem at all. So, there's a range of perceptions and views on this, but the vast majority view that there's some degree of problem related to danger on the water. The other question that's relevant is about the impact of wakes on safety and river health. So, wakes can swamp and disturb swimmers and capsize boaters and that sort of paddlers and that sort of thing, but they also erode the shoreline, impact wildlife and other things. So on that question, which was, in your opinion, how much of an impact do boat wakes have on safety and river health, we have, again, a majority believe there is an impact, a negative impact. 64% think it's a big impact, and another 30% a moderate impact, and only 6% don't think that there's an impact from wakes. So those results are a good starting point to show that really, a large majority of respondents to that survey, at least, which was broadly promoted and broad-based in terms of responses, agree that there are problems with the current situation the level of traffic on the river and the level of recreational use, creating situations both of danger to humans and an impact on the shoreline and environment. Again, just can't reiterate enough. If you have a different perspective, another perspective, additional information on the problems, we want to hear from you tonight and in those submissions online. Next slide, please. So I think it's important, again, no, I think it's important. It is necessary by Transport Canada's requirements to delve into the root causes of the problem. So one of the things that we need to understand and come to a common understanding of is boat wakes and how they relate to boat speed. That becomes a fundamental and a key aspect in our discussions about the regulations and non-regulatory or other changes to reduce wake impact. So we've done some research and put together this information to look at kind of the fundamentals of boat wakes. And there's three modes that a boat goes through as it speeds up in the water for most boats. The first mode is called displacement mode. And that's where the boat's going from zero quite slowly. The boat's fully settled in the water, the bow is down, and it's making minimal wake. And this, for most boats, this is 10 kilometers an hour or less. The graph on the right, there's a link. All my stuff has links to the references where this material came from. There's a link there, and this will be on the website, to the source of some research. And there's lots of different research out there similar to this, of how the boat waves are generated and what the erosion impact is as boats speed up. So the first zone, the displacement zone, it goes up to about 10 kilometers an hour. The red line is the trailing wake energy, or the spreading wake energy. And you can see that it increases as soon as the boat starts moving. And at 10 kilometers an hour, there's energy in the waves for sure. But the black dots are the actual erosion measured as a result of that boat wake, the wave generated by that wake. And you can see up to 10, it's virtually nil. There's virtually no erosion. And there's a wave of no erosion because boat wake waves will not cause erosion unless they tend to be more energetic. Can't say just larger, because height isn't the only thing, it's height and speed and frequency, but have more energy than the naturally occurring wind waves. So when boat wakes have more energy than naturally occurring wind waves, which are pretty modest on the Gatineau River, then they're going to start causing erosion. So we can have some waves, but erosion doesn't start until they get to a certain size and level of energy. Now, above 10 kilometers an hour, any boaters will know, you get into a transition mode, also called a plowing mode, where the bow rises, the stern drops, and the boat plows through the water. We've all seen this, and particularly a boat trying to take off with a skier behind, or as the boat slows down, the big wave that results in that transition zone. So in that mode, the boat is creating the maximum wake, most damaging wake. And that happens just above 10 kilometers an hour. Again, plus or minus a couple kilometers an hour, depending on the boat hull shape and things like that, but it's pretty consistent around that level. So even a few kilometers an hour more speed, 15 kilometers an hour, most boats are making a massive wake. So, it's really an important transition point. And you can see from the curve what happens with the red line is it just climbs very steeply. So the energy in the wake becomes very very high, and the black dots track that, so that the erosion that's causing also becomes quite high. Now then, as the boat continues to speed up, if it's the hull design is a so-called planing hull, and not all boats are, but if it is a planing hull, it'll enter a planing mode where the boat then goes back to kind of a level orientation in the water, and it actually rises up a little bit. Less of the hull is contacting the water, and the energy in the wake starts dropping, as you see, as does the erosion that it causes. However, in planing mode, there's still is erosion. There's still much more energy in the wake, and the erosion it's causing is still a positive erosion impact. Whereas back in the displacement mode, there's essentially no erosion. Now, some boats don't ever make it into planing mode. The hull shape just stays in displacement mode and it just plows. And the more power you put to it, the more gas you're going to suck, and it's going to make a bigger wave, and you'll never increase speed. Sailing boats, an example of a displacement hull design, but some other motorized boats like that as well. So, so important takeaway here is that the speed really matters in terms of the erosion causing wake, and it's very sensitive. And if you're going to slow down, so if we talk about speed limits, is very relevant. We talk about slowing down. Unless we slow down enough in an area where we're close to shore, enough being like 10 kilometers an hour, we're going to be having a wake impact and erosion. In fact, it could be worse at slower speeds as you slow down. Let's next slide, please. So that's the kind of not just the theory, but the research behind wakes and speeds and that sort of thing. So the other part of the equation is the distance from shore, another critical part of the equation, right? And as the wake travels through the water, it dissipates, the energy dissipates, the waves round off, and eventually some distance from the boat, they become insignificant in terms of their ability to cause erosion or disturb wildlife or paddlers or swimmers or whatever the case might be. So research, and there's links here to the sources, report that most regular boats typically lose the wake typically loses energy and softens its impact after about 150 meters. Now that depends on the speed of the boat, the length of the boat, the shape of the hull, that sort of thing, the shallowness of the water. There's other factors, but it's a pretty regularly cited guide. You're talking about that distance from a boat before the wake dissipates. Now for wake boats, it's different. They're designed to make large waves, and it's about double the distance required. So 300 meters or so before the wake wave would dissipate and not be having an impact. So to see how this plays out on our river, we did some observations of passing boats and the wakes they cause to see for ourselves. And so this is one set of observations I'm going to show. I have a little 1-minute video clip after this to show it in video and a few boats passing by and the wakes they made. But just to give a context, this was at Cascades area bay, just north of the Cascades Club, just before the river narrows. So just north end of Cascade, there's a significant narrowing neck in the river, and then from there north, it's much narrower. And there's a protruding rock in the river there, and so all the boats coming up from the wider bay or coming down into the wider bay tend to follow the middle of the river pretty closely, and that translates to about 175 meters from the observation point that the videos and these photos were taken from. So it's, and some boats might have been, 10, 20 meters closer or 10, 20 meters further apart, but really not outside of that range. So it's a good example, illustration of what happens at 150 meters. And certainly as you get closer, 100 meters or less from shore, the impact rises dramatically. But these were at about 170 or so meters from shore. And it happened to be a Sunday afternoon, a week ago Sunday, later in the afternoon. And what was observed, consistent with the research and literature, was there was indeed an impact after 150 meters still. Another interesting thing is a boat going by 150 meters away, the wake didn't actually hit shore until a full 2 minutes after that boat passed. Now, the slowest boat is probably doing 30 kilometers an hour, the power boat going through planing, and some faster. But even at only 30 kilometers an hour, after 2 minutes, that boat's a kilometer away. So the boats are long, pretty much out of sight by the time the wake hits. So This is another thing that I came across in lots of articles and literature, was that the motorboaters often aren't aware of the impact of their wake because they don't see it. They're long gone. Now, certainly motorboaters who also live on the waterfront and see boats go by will have a better appreciation, but that's quite a remarkable lag when you actually start timing it and looking at it. And the other important point, I guess, is the impact is cumulative. So the wakes don't need to be huge and dramatic to cause erosion. If they're at all bigger than naturally occurring wind waves, they're going to cause microscopic erosion, even if they're just very small. But if you have over a season, multiple seasons, thousands and thousands of boats passing, it accumulates into an erosion problem. So let's look at the video. Next slide, please. Which, Mark, if you could just play that video, which is only a minute long, and then I'll speak more to it.
Yeah, just bear with me for a second. I need to set it up.
So while he's setting up, I'll just maybe comment. This was over about a 30-minute period that I videotaped boats going by and their wake impact. And it was interesting because it so happened, or just that 30 minutes, I had about 6 boats go by, and it was an incredible selection of boats. There was like a pontoon boat, a fishing boat, a ski boat holding a tower, a sea-doo. So we had the nice range of most of the types of craft going by, and all of them produced a perceptible wake that hit shore, and in some cases, pretty significant wake.
Okay, does the video work here? Oh, no.
So while Mark's trying to sort that out further, I'll.
I think we should just move on until he's ready, and then we can play it after.
Yeah, well, I have a few more comments to make about it anyway. So if he gets it going right now, then great. So what I observed in that half-hour period was that when a boat was passing every 4 to 6 minutes on average. So with the lag and the wakes last about a minute, it's a pretty continuous accumulation on the shore. The other thing is that it matters things like orientation to the shore. So boats heading northbound there made a dramatically larger wake than impacting the shore than boats going southbound, just because of the angle of the shore to where the wake was coming from. So it's sensitive to things like that. The other thing is that boat wakes can add up. So the first thing I saw were 2 boats going opposite directions that passed shortly after each other, in front of where I was observing from, and their wakes then added up. Waves can cancel out and they can add up, right? And so we had quite a dramatic wake from that. So boats that are passing each other, boats that are passing or following each other in close succession, which you often have, can also amplify. So these are other factors that you see. So anyway, if we can't get the video going right now, it is linked into the presentation, which will be on the website, so you can go and see it for yourself. I think it's illustrative. The other thing is that this was just a first snapshot at seeing this, and I think it's useful maybe to conduct some additional observation sessions like this in different parts of the river, different widths, boats going by at different speeds, and that might help illuminate and clarify what the impact and relationships are, if that's helpful to some people.
Thank you very much. Oh, sorry, Bob, are you?
Yeah, so I was going to go to the next slide now, if
Okay.
the video is not possible at this time. Are you able to go to the next slide, Mark?
Maybe. Just give me a second. Is it back up?
If we go to the next slide, which is slide.
It's not. I guess he exited the presentation to play the video, but so please bear with us. There we are. We're in speaker mode right now, though, Mark.
Yeah. Oh.
So while we're just waiting, there's a comment in the chat about a bit of translation. So Francine, I'm not sure if what part you would like. There's a lot that Bob said, but on pourrait essayer de dire un peu qu'est-ce qu'il disait en français. Il parlait vraiment des silages et comment les différentes vitesses affectent les silages. Puis, en fait, il a dit qu'en bas de 10 km, il n'y a presque pas d'impact. Mais après ça, il y a un mode de transition où il y a beaucoup d'impact et le silage est plus gros. Et après, je ne sais pas comment dire ça en français, mais planing, après qu'il a pris la vitesse, il a pris sa vitesse optimale, le silage descend, mais c'est plus qu'à 10 km, mais c'est moins que pendant la transition. C'est la dernière chose dont il parlait. Il parlait aussi de son vidéo qu'on ne voyait pas, mais il y a une vidéo qui va être qui est sur la présentation, qui va être sur le site web, qui démontre, il a filmé des bateaux qui passaient et puis c'était les vagues cumulatives, un après l'autre, les bateaux passaient un après l'autre et après ça, il a filmé le silage. J'espère que ça répond à tes questions, mais tu pourras poser des questions spécifiques si vous voulez. Je peux essayer de répondre soit écrit ou verbalement.
Over to you, Bob, now.
Okay, yeah, apologies that my French is not conversational to do this bilingually like the others, but everything is bilingual in the slides, and we will accommodate your any questions as we go through. Rita will help out with that. So what does that mean in the context of the river? Given that waves can have an impact from regular boats up to 150 meters, 300 meters for wake boats. How does it apply to our river? So we've got an illustrated map here, which is to scale actually of the river. And there's also a link in the bottom here to an interactive map, which is on our website prominently on a couple of pages, which has a lot of detail about overlays on Google Maps a map of points of interest, distances, river widths, activity areas, etc. So hopefully that's something might be of interest to a lot of people to go and delve into that. But this represents the key information. And it's important to identify that there are some distinct sections along the river. Now, to clarify, first of all, this process covers the river from the Chelsea Dam, the Rapide Farmer Barrage in Chelsea, to the north end of the border of La Pêche, which is about 7 kilometers south of the Poggen Dam, so north of Feralton. We didn't show the whole river on this particular graph just because a lot of what we're going to talk about is focused on the stretch below the covered bridge. North of the covered bridge, the river tends to be fairly consistently wide at 150 to 200 meters. And there's much less waterfront development, docks, habitation, and much less motorboat traffic. It was a popular floaters run from Alcove down through. So there are issues there, but I think by talking about this section here tonight, we're covering the issues that also apply north of the bridge. So beyond, the first section is north of the bridge, and then we have the Wakefield Bay as a distinct area. It's a little wider. It's up to 500 meters across. The area, though, is small where it's that wide. It's half a kilometer square in area roughly. And as we all know, I'm sure that it's very busy. The village there and paddleboard rentals and just lots of docks, public and private docks. It's a very popular place, so it gets extremely busy with all kinds of recreational activity on a popular warm summer day. We gathered some data, and these are are fact-based. These are not just off-the-cuff remarks, right? We gathered data from Expedition Wakefield and the Cascades Club and the Gatineau River Yacht Club And these are records they provided, so they're accurate numbers, and they're kind of astounding, at least they were to me initially, that in Wakefield, on a seasonal basis, there are 9,000 approximately rentals going out. So paddle trips out on stand-up paddle boards, canoes and kayaks, just from them. So that's just a fraction of the activity. I mean, you know, people that all live along there and visitors that put in their paddle craft and go swimming, you know, add on to that. And of course, when you add that up over the course of the season, it's a huge number. And then we have the motorboaters coming up there as well to enjoy the bay. So that's a distinct area. It's wider, but obviously one of the most congested areas recreationally speaking. From there, the stretch down to Cascade, where that observation was done with the video, just where the bay starts to open up, is you know, on the order of 8, 9 kilometers. And the river in that stretch is fairly narrow. The narrow out of Wakefield is only 90 meters wide, and then it widens up to around 200 meters through to the Farm Point boat launch, and there it gets a little bit wider. It's, you know, it's in and out and sections, but between 200 and 300 meters is the maximum width, just north of Cascade, that stretch of river reaches. And then we get into Cascade. And the Cascade Bay, we'll call it, is, you know, that wider area where the Cascade Club is. And there's also the float plane base there. So there are float planes going in and out. You know, it not quite as busy as the Wakefield Bay, but pretty darn busy, especially when Cascade Club has a lot of paddlers out. And the float planes are coming and going. And it's popular with motorboaters coming through there, as well, as my video will show. And then when we get south of Cascade, the river narrows again, the south end of Cascade, and Beatty Point, so-called Beatty Point, which is the point that forms the Burnett Bay there, Burnett Road, is the narrowest point below Cascade. It's less than 300 meters wide there. And then from there south, we have a different situation, all the way from Beatty Point to the dam, another 9 kilometers or so. The river is considerably wider, and you know, up to 700 meters wide. And there's only a couple of points, short stretches, where it's less than 300 meters wide. So this orange line just denotes the stretches of river that are wider than 300 meters, meaning it's possible to be in the middle of the river and be more than 150 meters from a shore. Everywhere else, that's not possible, except in Wakefield Bay and Cascade Bay, which have those, you know, kind of unique recreational hotspots. The other point of interest hotspot is the Yacht Club, and they have about 3,300 sailboat outings in a season there. So it's a fairly busy area. And of course, they have the kids' camps that are out swimming and paddling and doing other things, as does the Cascade Club in normal years. Now, the other thing is that those aren't the only hotspots along the river. There are others. You know, there's the docks at Farm Point. There's a popular sort of a beach up near the quarry, which is kind of a creek delta. The sediment has developed out of the creek, you know, the quarry from the creek there, and create a big delta. People gets quite crowded there, with people stopping their boats and paddling and just wading around. Tenaga, of course, has a community beach there that's quite busy. And there are 600 private docks in this stretch from the bridge down. And so you get all along lots of activity of people swimming, floating, paddling, and boating. So all that is to, you know, give us some context. If we combine that with the distance that wakes travel and the impact they can cause, then we see we have a bit of a combination of the fundamental physics of boat wake distances and erosion impact, you know, combined with the recreational density and the narrowness of the river, to create a situation that causes the safety issues, concerns, and the wake impact concerns. Next slide, please. So there's kind of problems, a little bit on the kind of causes of the problems now, in just kind of recapping or revisiting the impacts of those. And there's two impacts. One is, the perceived danger and fear people have, and the other one is the erosion of the wake. So on the perceived fear and danger, we saw the survey results already in terms of the number of people who view that there's a risk on the river, which is the majority. In addition to that, 100 people took the time during the survey to write comments, submit comments about safety incidents or views on that survey. That full list is linked to here, so you can peruse it if you're interested. These 5 or 6 are just illustrative of the range of concerns expressed. And one thing that stood out was that quite a few people cited the fact that they don't feel comfortable going out on the river anymore at busy times to swim or paddle. So that's a shame. And then there was quite a few people that cited near misses, incidents they had of getting near misses with motorboats. So that's one impact, is that people are restraining their activity on the river out of fear. And it's their fear, their perception of fear. So it's what they, we can't really argue with that. That's what they're feeling and reporting. And there's a lot of people in that category. Or they're observing situations that they deem dangerous. So that's more on the impact, I guess, on the human danger side. Next slide, please. So the other impact was the erosion one. So this top photo is a example of erosion on the Gatineau side, just south of Cascade. And there's other examples along the river. But an interesting knock-on effect of erosion, the problem of erosion, is that many waterfront residents have over the years invested in breakwaters. Rock along the shore, wood, concrete. These are photos from the shore, actually not far from that erosion example on the Gatineau side, but up and down the river, you see lots of this. And it's necessary, otherwise the erosion would be unchecked. Now, and related to erosion and the shoreline, so this means that we don't have a natural shoreline because these breakwaters have been installed. Now, on the FOG, I won't go into it today, but on the FOG website, we have a whole area about shoreline protection and the functions of a healthy shoreline. So a natural vegetation shoreline filters water runoff, provides habitat for wildlife. There's all kinds of important functions of it. And in the survey that we did as well, 93% of respondents to that, we had a question about shoreline buffer reestablishment. 93% of respondents want to see a healthy shoreline buffer zone reestablished. So that's impossible until the breakwaters can be removed, and the breakwaters can't be removed until the wake issue is significantly reduced. So that's a major impact that ripples down to shoreline regeneration discussions and that sort of thing. So those are the major points in terms of the views of the problems and research we've done so far. So now we can look at any questions that remain outstanding.
Yes, thank you, Bob, for your presentation. And Rita, I note that you've been responding as Bob has been presenting to some, and then there are some questions that still remain. Rita, would you like to just comment a little bit before?
Yeah, so I mean, I've been typing frantically. I've just answered 34 questions and missed most of Bob's presentation, but there are a few that I think are worth talking about. So if Bob, if you were to look at the open questions.
Right.
Okay.
Sure. Okay. Well, I'll do my best here. And again, this is, there's more research to be done. We look for more input, help in understanding the puzzle here. First question I have, Kim Gunsel says, we have a significant exposure to large wind waves in front of our house when prevailing winds are blowing, and they often outsize some of the largest boat wakes we see. Suggest there is much natural wave activity on several sections of the river. Certainly there are wind waves, and what the literature on boat wake damage says is that only when the boat wake waves have more energy than the wind waves, will they contribute to erosion? So wind waves, do contribute to erosion, but that's like a millennial era, time frame thing, and the river eventually meanders as there's erosion and deposition, sort of thing. Those are natural processes, and the boat wakes will aggravate that if they're more energetic. So it's not about height. So when we see waves, the wind waves often can be taller, but again, what I've found in the literature was that it's about the energy. And wind waves, while they're often or can be tall looking, they don't have the same erosive effect because they don't carry as much energy. And the energy is a combination of the height of the wave, the speed that it's moving. So a boat wake wave will travel much more quickly than a wind wave typically, and the frequency. So the boat wake waves will tend to be stacked up close together. They kind of pound the shore, whereas the wind waves, have their own frequency, which is a longer period. So that's what I understand from the research. But so that's hopefully clarifies a bit. Question from Vicky Kelly. Oh, things are jumping around. Colin Moses. What's the distance from the shore at which these erosion measures were taken? If he's referring to the curve that I showed there, the link is to the research. That particular one was from research in Australia, the lower, I forget the name of the river, but you can see it there. And that river section, you look it up, is about 600 meters wide, and they have a problem with boats. So I can't recall if they specified the distance from shore that the boats are passing to cause that erosion. But the absolute amount of erosion, I don't think is the most important thing. It's the shape of that curve, right? That above 10 kilometers an hour, the wake has more energy and it causes erosion, and the amount of erosion rises. So that would be proportional to how far you are from shore. And what I've observed, my video and measures were 150 meters from shore, which is quite far. So most of the wave has dissipated by then, and there still was an impact. I've observed some boats go by occasionally closer, say 100 meters, and it's significantly higher. So that is an important variable, distance to shore. But I've seen 150 meters can still carry that impact, and the closer, the worse the impact. Question, Vicky Kelly, does the raising and lowering of the river by hydro not also have an impact on erosion? I haven't answered that one. So I imagine if the river is at a different level, say lowered, and then there's wind waves or boat waves on top of that, it's exposed to a different kind of part of the river than it normally is when it's higher. So it probably is an important variable, absolutely. Jennifer Moore says, in your map of the flooded part of the river, the narrow sections less than 300 meters are where there used to be rapids, and the shorelines are rocky and less susceptible to wave erosion. Yeah, so that's a good point, that actually much of the shoreline is rocky. And when you look at the stretch of river, much of it is a roadbed. On the Cantley side, north of Cascade, and then La Pêche all the way to Poggen, it's essentially a roadbed, right? So it's a steep roadbed of rock and gravel. So it's not susceptible to much erosion there. We do see some erosion in some sections. So it's not really a natural shoreline there anyway, where it's a roadbed, or where my video was taken and it shows the waves impacting the shore is actually along the rail trail bed. So another man-made bed that goes steeply down with rock into the river. So those aren't susceptible to a lot of erosion. Although over the years, I know neighbors along there who have rocky shorelines that say they still notice it does cause erosion, works through the rocks and soil eventually pulls out, so it can happen. But the biggest effect is obviously when there's more of a natural shoreline.
Rita, would you like to? There was Lena Bouvier.
Yeah, there's about 4 questions in there, I think, and then they're not all necessarily related to Bob's presentation. So I think we'll get to the end.
Just one for after your presentation?
Yeah, after my presentation, yeah.
OK.
So
Excellent. Donc, on va répondre, Madame Bouvier, on va répondre à votre question après la présentation de Rita Jane, parce que vous soulevez plusieurs questions et c'est important que ça se passe après la présentation de Rita, parce qu'elle a des informations pertinentes à offrir. So Bob, over to you for Kim Gunsel.
Okay, are these breakwaters not typically on clay sections of shoreline, which are rapidly eroding due to their geology, the artificial nature of the flooded shoreline post-dam construction? From my knowledge of the river, and I paddle up and down all the time, the breakwaters are all along the river, including up, close to Wakefield and the bay, and some sections there's a lot of clay, and that's part of the issue, is that the shoreline is sensitive to erosion when it's exposed because of the clay. So that's part of the sensitivity of our river shore to waves. So I'm not sure if I answered the question there, but that makes it even more sensitive to erosion. Carrie Hodgson's, from my perspective, I live in the 90-meter width section of the river. It appears that the boaters just are not aware of their boat behavior and safety conducts. How, as observers, oops, it's jumping around on me here.
I'm sorry, I'm going to answer that question after my presentation.
Yes.
Okay.
So then we're to Andy Ball.
Okay. Sorry, the questions jump up and down, I guess, as people thumb them up. The river is recently flooded for hydro generation. The shoreline is not stable. Some of the shoreline barriers predate boat activity on the river. Logs were run the river until 90. These breakwaters predate that. With this in mind, can you decisively say this erosion is caused by recreational motorboats? Well, again, having been a waterfront resident, living near the water for 30 years, I know of neighbors myself who have long since the logs stopped invested in adding rock and breakwaters because of the erosion problem due to the motorboats. And it's not about me decisively saying anything, I think, Andy, but I presented the information that says, if you have boats traveling at more than 10 km an hour, they're in the transition or planing mode, and they're within 150 meters of a shore, they're going to have an impact. And so the impact, erosion is one impact, and the other impact is just the docks jacking around and moored boats getting banged around and things like that we've seen reports of. So the evidence I think I presented says that yes, there is if you're boating about 10 kilometers an hour in a channel that's less than 300 meters wide, you're likely having an impact, unless the shoreline is all pure rock, in which case in some sections it is on one bank at least, but there's lots of other sections of river that aren't. And back to the survey, where 97% of people want to see regeneration of the shoreline with natural plants and get away from that rock. So even if the breakwaters predate some of this stuff, the ideal vision of 2030 vision kind of output we had showed that it's important to river health, and people agree it is, that we do something to restore the river to its more natural state, which means to replace some of these rock structures and artificial breakwaters with more natural vegetation-based shorelines.
Next one.
In the measurement of width, did you take into consideration islands and rocks? I would be surprised if the southernmost section, if you take the width from the islands to the shore, would exceed the 300 meters presented. So no, I didn't take it. It's a good point, lots of shoals and rocks and little islets. Well, not too many little islets, but there's the big island right down near the dam, and there's a little banana island near Burnett there. Yeah, so that orange line is, I guess, a starting point to say, here's candidate sections that may be wider. And your point is a good point. When we actually look at, other obstructions in shore depth, it might be further limited to where it's safe to say it's more than 300 meters wide. Especially, it depends where boats track. I mean, a rock or something is not subject to erosion in the water, but if a boat has to veer closer to shore, then that might not be an area where they can stay in the middle, well offshore. Monique Larocque, how did the damming of river change the natural shoreline, and what were the effects on it today, if any? Well, that's an interesting kind of historical question that I don't have the knowledge or information to say. Obviously, it changed the river dramatically when the shoreline was changed. So it's a good point. I mean, nothing is really natural per se, but so we want to get back to a natural shoreline. We want to get to a state where we have a a healthier vegetation buffer. Whether that goes back pre-damming or whatever, but when it had that state is maybe an interesting consideration. But the river health would be increased if we had more of the bank in a healthy, state of vegetation.
And
So, so Bob, I think I'm going to, there's so many questions, and I think we can, if there's more questions, we can save them for later, because it's kind of ongoing, and we need to continue with our
Sure. Well, I think we've answered most of them. There's only a few, but I guess what we can say is that we will, anyway, and then we didn't get to here, we'll do written answers too, and then those answers, Q&A, will be available afterwards, right?
Oui, merci beaucoup, Bob. J'ai noté dans les commentaires, Madame Trépanier a demandé où est la place du français dans cette présentation. Madame Trépanier, je ne sais pas si vous étiez avec nous au début. Bob McCallum a fait sa présentation uniquement en anglais. Cependant, si vous voulez qu'il y ait des sections qui soient traduites, on peut vous offrir cela. Et s'il vous plaît, offrez vos questions, commentaires en français, et nous allons répondre en français. Évidemment, le PowerPoint est dans les deux langues. Et Rita, quand elle fera sa présentation, comme elle a fait au début de la soirée, elle va le faire de façon bilingue, sa présentation. Donc, s'il vous plaît, Madame Trépanier et autres, offrez vos commentaires dans le chat et vos questions dans le questions et réponses en français, et nous allons vous répondre en français. Donc, I think, Rita, a question for you. Do you want to continue with your presentation and then have a 5-minute break, or would you like to do the 5-minute break now?
I think we could continue. I mean, I think, yeah, let's continue, and then we can have a break after my presentation.
Okay, and I just want to mention to everybody that Rita's presentation does not have as many slides as Bob's, so we'll be able to take a little bit of a health break shortly, and then we'll be able to. So pendant que Rita fait sa présentation, Bob McCallum et moi-même, nous allons regarder les questions, et Bob pourra répondre à certaines questions par écrit en anglais, et ensuite on répondra aux questions en français verbalement par Rita. So while Rita is making her presentation, Bob will be monitoring the questions and responding to those that he can in English, and Rita will respond verbally to the French ones, in other words. So merci beaucoup, Bob. Thank you, Bob, and over to you, Rita.
So Mark, I'd like the next slide, please. We'll just go to this one, the next one after this. So what I'd like to do now is just talk. We've kind of, Bob has done a good job of defining the problem. It's true that there are many factors involved in the river, and FOG has a pretty big mandate in terms of water quality, and so this is just like another part of that mandate. But we've done some rigorous studying of or research on the studies, and basically what Bob's message is that erosion is caused by waves, and we know how far the waves travel, and therefore based on that data we would like to make people aware about it. That's basically what that message is. So now what I'd like to talk about is some solutions. Let's talk about solutions. So as I mentioned, comme j'ai mentionné, Transport Canada a son processus, et cet été, on doit essayer toutes les solutions possibles sans changement de règlement. So this is all the possible solutions. So this is why we are getting together today, is to find out how we can all work together and address some of the issues that were highlighted in the survey and in the study, as Bob has mentioned. So I just wanted to mention that also that we had FOG had an AGM very recently. Could you click more, Mark, because there's multiple. Yeah. Thank you. And at that AGM, based on that survey that Bob was talking about, we did come out with a vision. I think it's a common vision for everyone, based on the survey and based on the participation of the AGM. Une vision commune qu'on a créée basée sur le sondage et la participation à notre AGM. Alors, une chose qui est certaine, tout le monde veut que l'eau continue à être d'une qualité excellente. Everybody wants the water quality to remain excellent. So, you know, all of these actions that we're trying to solve are about this. It's about the water quality, and it's about the health of the river. Another item that came out of that survey and AGM is the stable shoreline, as Bob mentioned. I forget the number, and he stated a number, I think it was 93% of people wanted a stable shoreline that was conducive to native plants and wildlife. And thirdly, a river that's safely shared by swimmers, paddlers, sailors, responsible boaters. So those are some of the goals that we have. Can you change the slide, please? There's a couple more, or was there? Okay. Also from the survey, we got resounding messages that we need to improve awareness and enforcement. There were many people there were many options of different kinds of speed limits that could be introduced and bans on specific boats, but that's not the topic of today. We're going to talk more about things that we can do without changing regulations. So awareness and enforcement and other things. So next slide, please. On parlait de la sensibilisation et la mise en vigueur. Alors, pour la sensibilisation, je voulais juste vous conter des choses qu'on a déjà faites. Alors, en partenariat avec la municipalité de Chelsea, on a créé cette enseigne à la mise à l'eau à Farm Point. So, with the help of the municipality of Chelsea, we created this this sign that is at the Farm Point boat launch. Its purpose is to increase awareness, not only because I know that most people don't really know what the speed limit is on the river. So not only to talk about regulations, but also to talk about etiquette, river etiquette. So these are not necessarily laws or rules, but we're encouraging people to act in a respectful way. So so the signs basically talk about the 10-kilometer limit within 30 meters of the shoreline. That is the current regulation. Mais aussi, on parle de ralentir quand on approche les pagayeurs et les nageurs. On parle aussi de minimiser les vagues, surtout dans les endroits étroits. We're also talking about things like washing your boat. As you may or may not know, we're starting to have a problem with invasive species, and those are being transmitted or shared amongst lakes through the boats that are traveling from lake to river and so on. So that's one thing that we're encouraging. Ne pas polluer, to not pollute, especially pouring gas on the shoreline and having gas spills, and aussi respecter la faune et les fleurs. So those are just kind of it's the beginning of a kind of a river etiquette for the Gatineau River. So that's one thing we've started with. Another thing we plan to do is we plan to have volunteers this summer spend some time on busy weekends handing out information or awareness type information to boaters, all kinds of boaters, actually, not just motorized boaters, but whoever is launching at Farm Point on weekends. So we're gonna do our little pilot starting on Saint-Jean-Baptiste and just fine tune it as we go along. But so that is something that we're committed to do. As well, we have we've just revamped our website. On vient d'avoir un nouveau site web qui est beaucoup plus capable de publier toutes sortes d'informations. We've been posting there like crazy, and this, of course, this program as well is it has its own dedicated page. Nous pensons aussi de faire une campagne dans la média sur la sensibilisation avec Facebook, puis en partenariat avec Lowdown aussi. So those are some of the things that we've committed to do this summer. Next slide, please. L'autre aspect, c'est la mise en vigueur, enforcement. So as Madame Green has mentioned, we did meet with the MRC police earlier this month, and to make them aware of some of the comments and observations that we received from the public. We felt it was necessary to pass it on to them. Donc, eux autres, la sécurité publique de la MRC, on les a rencontrés ce mois et on a parlé de tous les messages qu'on a reçus à travers le sondage et le AGA. Et puis, on a parlé aussi un peu de plus de sensibilisation par rapport à les dangers, les nouveaux dangers qui commencent. C'est vrai qu'eux, ils nous ont parlé de les infractions qui ont donné dernièrement. C'est plus sur les, it's more on the non-motorized side, but you know, they also did say that it is very hard to catch somebody speeding when the speed limit is 55 kilometers an hour. That means that they would have to be racing down and causing danger. So that is, you know, a factor. They also said that they didn't receive a lot of calls about this. So does that mean that, you know, it's probably too late by the time they call? But anyways, they did encourage people to call if there was, you know, dangerous situations. So they did commit to have a presence on the river, but they do have a very wide geographical area to cover and, you know, one boat. So, but they do realize that the Gatineau River is probably one of the busier ones. So, so that's where we left it. And so we, you know, we will work together this summer and pass information back and forth to each other. But we do encourage you to also call them if you see a dangerous situation. Next slide. Une autre chose qu'on veut faire cet été, c'est la collecte des données pour vraiment faire le cas ou comprendre vraiment la situation. Donc, we started in terms of data collection with our survey this summer. The survey had a broader scope than this particular topic, but there were a few questions about boating safety in it. So that is going to be our baseline. Après ça, les bénévoles, on a une équipe de bénévoles qui vont surveiller le trafic sur la rivière. La plupart, c'est des gens qui vivent au bord de la rivière, donc ils sont déjà sur le quai, puis on a une formule qu'on doit remplir. So we also have a team of volunteers, and we're still looking for more if anybody's interested, to monitor traffic from their own docks. And we have a form that one would fill out per day, just to count, you know, what is passing and if there are any incidents. And so that way we have a better, you know, data, better data to make decisions with. I was supposed to link the form to this presentation, but I didn't have time to do it. I promised to put it up on the website for those that might be interested in participating in that. Nous allons aussi avoir des bénévoles à la mise à l'eau à Farm Point, comme j'ai dit. ils vont faire la sensibilisation. On a fait un petit brochure, mais aussi, ils vont aussi faire une collecte de données. Our volunteers in Farm Point that will be at the Farm Point boat launch will not only, be part of the awareness campaign, but they'll also be collecting some data right on the spot. Comme j'ai dit, on va travailler avec d'autres groupes, incluant la police et d'autres groupes récréatifs qui ont des données, par exemple, Cascades Club, combien de bateaux, la location des planches et des kayaks à Whitfield. So we're going to also work with other groups to capture some of the some data that's available that they're already capturing. So including with the police and other recreational groups that are either renting equipment or launching and so on. And we were thinking also that in order to assess the difference of our, or the effectiveness of our campaign this summer, that at the end of the summer, we also do a survey to see how people felt about this summer compared to last summer. So that was one of the ideas that we had. On pensait aussi de faire un sondage ou une enquête vers la fin de l'été pour évaluer comment ça a été cet été avec la sensibilisation puis la mise en vigueur si on a eu des changements. So those are our ideas so far. Next slide, please. So this slide is similar to the one that Bob was showing, and we're hoping to put it in the information sheet that we are going to hand out at Farm Point. And what we're doing here is we're trying to encourage people to first of all to tell them where the hotspots are, and then to encourage them to slow down in those areas. Mm-hmm. So based on this map, we can show, we show the width and the areas where we think it should be a slow zone versus, the orange area where it's much wider and therefore could be a faster zone. We also want to make sure that people give the right of way to, the motorized boats give right of way to the non-motorized boats and also slow down because their wakes do affect them. So this is kind of part of the awareness campaign and hoping that people will voluntarily just, by being informed, will slow down. So yes, the next slide, please. So this slide is just basically some other ideas that we received from the public, either via our AGM, emails, and also during the survey. Pendant le sondage, notre AGA, on a reçu d'autres idées qui sont intéressantes. Alors, et puis après ça, on voudrait ouvrir le micro et entendre vos idées. Mais here are some of the ideas that we received. So markers for rocks and shoals for, so that they're visible. Boating and paddling lanes was an idea. Separate motorized and non-motorized boat launches. Because at the boat launch, there is a fair amount of traffic, chaos, I would say. Des mises à l'eau séparées pour les bateaux motorisés et les how do you say, paddling boats?
Non motorisés.
Oui, c'est ça, non motorisés. Il y avait des suggestions d'avoir plus de place pour mettre les poubelles proche de la mise à l'eau ou les places publiques de la nage. And also ideas like designated protected areas. Déjà, that are already wild that we could designate them as protected areas. So those were some of the ideas that we received. And I just want to say that just before opening up the floor, is that, again, I just want to repeat that FOG is a volunteer-based organization. So many ideas are good, but we also need people and money to put them in place. So it goes hand in hand, and we're just looking for people to help out. If you have a good idea and are willing to help out, that's the way we're going to be able to proceed. So that's it for me. If there are any specific questions for me, et s'il y a des questions pour moi, sinon on peut aussi commencer avec les idées ou on prend un break.
Oui, voilà. Merci beaucoup, Rita, pour votre présentation. Thank you, Rita, for your presentation. Thank you both, Bob and Rita. Merci à Bob et Rita pour une présentation sur les enjeux, les problématiques, ainsi que des solutions potentielles pour cette année non réglementaire. Thank you for your presentations on what are the issues and some solutions, the non-regulatory solutions for this summer. Moi, je propose qu'on prenne une pause de 5 minutes maintenant parce que Rita, ça va vous permettre de regarder les questions et commentaires parce qu'il y en a plusieurs qui sont en français, qui sont venus pendant votre présentation. So let's take a 5-minute break, and we'll come back, and then we'll move into Rita will look at the questions and respond to questions from her presentation, and then we move into the open forum. Donc, nous allons prendre une pause. Rita répondra ensuite aux questions et nous allons ensuite ouvrir au forum ouvert, et ça sera en 2 volets. Je note l'heure, donc nous allons certainement continuer jusqu'à 9h30 aujourd'hui, et nous allons commencer, après que Rita répond aux questions, nous allons commencer avec les 12 ou 13 ou 14 personnes qui ont indiqué qu'ils voulaient faire une présentation. Je pense que Rita et Bob, je pense que tout le monde, c'est un peu long d'essayer de passer 9h30 ce soir, donc il y a façon que on termine vers 9h30, et we finish around 9:30 this evening, because we'll all start to get into fatigue listening mode and fatigue responding. So let's take a 5-minute break and then come back. Rita will answer questions about her presentation, and then we'll move into the people who requested to speak prior to tonight. They said that they would like to speak at tonight's event. So 5-minute break. Let's come back at 8:45. Merci tout le monde. Rita, it's 8:45. Are we?
There's a couple, I've answered many of them online, but there's a couple actually that I think would be better answered by Carol because she's also the mayor of Chelsea. And I know there was talk about a boat washing station. There's two questions about that, and perhaps Carol has some insight about when and where that might happen. I know she mentioned it once. So I don't know if Carol's back. Maybe not, eh?
Maybe not quite yet. No. Hello, Carol, would you like to respond to a couple of the? Oh, you're on mute, Carol. Vous êtes sur mute.
No, sorry, I was just taking a call. So sorry.
The question, there's a couple of questions about boat washing station. And I know you had mentioned it, so I'm not sure what the plans are, but maybe you could share with.
Sure, I can speak to that. At what point do you want to answer those questions right away?
Right now, we're just finishing off those questions from my presentation. So.
Okay.
So you go ahead and answer if you would like.
Oh, well, okay, people are there.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry, I wasn't quite sure. Yeah. So, est-ce que c'est en français et anglais, mais
c'est les deux. Une
Okay.
question en anglais pour le lavage de bateaux.
Alors, cet été, il y aura un poste de lavage, mais c'est portatif à Farm Point. Et il y aura du monde qui sont disponibles pour aider les personnes. Le conseil de Chelsea a voulu mettre un poste de lavage permanente, mais il n'y en avait pas un site où on pouvait recevoir l'eau qui est peut-être contaminée. So this summer, there will be a temporary washing station at the Farm Point boat launch. And there'll be people on hand to help show how to use it, and that the council had wanted to do a permanent boat washing site, but we didn't have an area where we could receive the possibly contaminated water. So that's still something that's in the works. But in the meantime, we wanted to proceed with this temporary portable boat washing station, and it'll only be available in the Farm Point area.
So that's great news. Because that is where most people launch in this at least in this stretch of the river. I'm trying to see what other questions. The other questions are not really related to me, and I'd have there's two questions from Lina Bouvier that I actually don't understand. Perhaps it's my French or. Il y a deux questions de Lina Bouvier, fait qu'on va peut-être la mettre sur le micro. Maybe we can just put her on the...
Rita, je peux peut-être... donc, elle propose que chaque personne qui veut être chauffeur d'un bateau motorisé a besoin de prendre un cours au Québec. Et il doit passer un examen et ensuite reçoit une certification d'être... Donc, elle propose, elle dit que ce qu'on devrait peut-être exiger la même chose de ceux qui utilisent des bateaux non motorisés. Et donc, c'est une question qu'elle pose. Y a-t-il encore des égouts qui s'écoulent directement dans la rivière? Certainement, à Wakefield, le système d'égout municipal existe depuis 1998. Donc, dans le village de Wakefield, il n'y en a pas qui s'écoulent. Et chaque municipalité, et Mme Green va pouvoir en parler plus longuement, et chaque municipalité a un programme d'inspection de systèmes septiques à tous les 2 ans pour s'assurer que les systèmes sont conformes et qu'ils ne s'égouttent pas dans la rivière.
Peut-être il y a 9, peut-être même 10 systèmes d'égout des infrastructures de eau usée sur la totalité de la rivière Gatineau, mais il y a un système, chaque municipalité doit gérer les tests et c'est exigé par la province que ces tests soient mis sur le site web de la municipalité et de la province. Alors, c'est, je pense, une gestion très serrée et monitorée. Et comme Mme Berthiaume dit, je pense que l'inspection de tous les 2 ans des systèmes septiques aide à régler le problème avec l'eau souterraine qui va vers la rivière aussi.
Oui. Et Mme Bouvier aussi mentionne le ministère de l'Environnement devrait-il alléger les restrictions nous permettant de renforcer la berge? Ça, c'est un point intéressant, puis je pense que c'est quelque chose, Mme Bouvier, d'en discuter parce que la rivière, il y aura peut-être dans les consultations futures de parler de solutions et peut-être il y a certains endroits sur la rivière où ça serait peut-être possible d'envisager de parler au ministère de l'Environnement. Mais c'est quelque chose qui va survenir au courant de l'été, l'automne.
Et on peut demander un CA, un certificat d'autorisation pour faire la stabilisation. On sait dans la municipalité, quand c'est nécessaire, il y a une possibilité de le faire. Alors, ce n'est pas que le ministère est fermé, mais ça prendra les plans et devis qui sont approuvés et soumis à la province.
Donc,
Okay.
je pense qu'on a passé à travers toutes les questions, non?
Oui, je pense que oui.
Parfait.
Donc, nous passons maintenant à le forum ouvert. Et je crois que la prochaine, moi, acétate, c'est un mot ancien, et la prochaine page du PowerPoint indique les noms des personnes qui ont répondu aux amis de la rivière Gatineau en indiquant qu'ils voulaient parler ce soir. Donc, je pense qu'on peut passer à la prochaine. I think we can go to the next slide, which has the name of several people who have asked to speak this evening. And they are in order of first come, first serve. So the first name on the list is Cindy Duncan McMillan, and she was the first one to respond to Friends of the Gatineau to say, to register and to say, yes, I would like to speak tonight. So we are now at 8:52, so you know, just past 10 to 9. So I'd like to suggest that I will ask each person on this list if they are present and if they wish to speak, and would like to offer that 1 minute for each participant, and I'll just monitor that to speak, those on the list, and following everyone's speaking, then both Rita and Bob will respond, and perhaps Madame Green as well, depending on what's brought forward. Donc, je propose que chaque personne, moi je vais demander à chaque personne sur la liste, en ordre sur la liste que vous voyez devant vous. Ce sont les gens qui ont dit oui, je veux parler ce soir, et c'est en ordre de leur demande avec les amis de la rivière Gatineau. 1 minute chaque personne, et moi je vais noter la minute et ensuite je vais vous dire, bon, votre minute est terminée. Et à la fin de ça, Rita et Bob et Madame Green seront disponibles pour offrir leurs commentaires et répondre aux questions. Donc, voilà. Je vais... Rita, is there anything else you would like to add? Est-ce que vous voulez ajouter quelque chose?
No, I just Lori was just reminding me that there was a question that didn't get answered, and so it was about noise pollution. And I honestly don't know how to answer, but perhaps Carol, you would better know about the jurisdiction of noise pollution on the river. I'm not even sure how who would have jurisdiction.
I think it would be similar for all the municipalities of the MRC, because we have a règlement uniformisé, a shared bylaw on noise. So that would be enforced by the MRC police. So I think both well, you could contact your municipality or contact the MRC police directly if you feel there's an infraction with regard to noise, and the police will come and deal with it. So I think that's the best way. So each municipality would have it on their website. It's a shared bylaw so that our MRC police can respond to all 7 municipalities.
Thank you, Madame Green. Merci. Rita, just wanted to do a quick check with you. Are you comfortable with, given the time, that we go with 1 minute per? Yes, okay, wonderful. So I would like to, bonjour, j'aimerais demander à Cindy Duncan McMillan. Cindy Duncan McMillan, are you present on the call, and would you like to speak, as you indicated you would like to speak? Okay, I do not hear Madame Duncan McMillan, so we'll move to the next person on the list. Steve.
I just want to check, Lynn, Mark, did you make Cindy a panelist so that we could hear her, or are we expecting them to answer by chat?
Oh, right, good.
I'm able to unmute people, Rita. I don't need to do that feature, but I don't see Cindy in here either.
Okay, so you would be able to unmute Cindy and so that she could speak?
I believe so. We'll try.
Well, let's try with Steve Ott, because I think Steve is here with us. So Steve and Mark, can you try to unmute Steve? Or Steve, are you on the line, and would you like to unmute yourself?
I did. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. They're wonderful. Okay. Nous passons maintenant à Steve Ott.
So I get my 1 minute?
Yes, absolutely.
I'll talk fast. I just want to throw my 2 cents in with someone that's been boating on the river for over 50 years, swimming, boating. I paddle, I sail. I am a motorboater too. I do all of it. We're based in Laramac. We have waterfront Laramac. So that's the stretch I know well, which is wide, considered a fast zone in your map. I don't see a lot of problems here. Yes, boats go by, obviously. It's not that big an issue. Where the problems I see is, and I regularly go on the river from the dam all the way up to Wakefield, is Wakefield Bay in the section just below Wakefield where it's very narrow. That's where I think voluntary speed limits or something might work. Below that, there's not much of an issue. Jet skis actually aren't that bad, because if they're going from A to B, they're gone in 30 seconds and they're quiet. They don't put out a large wake. It's the ones that go round and round and round and round and round. Those are the problems with kids that are playing on them. Wake boats, that's the big problem. The waves they put out are like the tugboats back in the 80s used to do. They rode everything. Wake boats, I think, if they can be banned, that should be something to be considered. But jet skis, unless, you know, it's
Steve, I'd just like to ask, could you wrap up your comments and questions?
Yeah,
please?
just gonna say, the jet skis, I don't think they're that bad. I don't own one, but they're not that bad if they just go A to B. But when they go round and round, that's the problem. That's my 2 cents.
Okay, thank you.
I don't think it's a big problem.
Okay,
On
thank
the
you very
water.
much.
Okay.
Thank you, Steve. Merci, Steve. Nous passons maintenant à Tammy Scott. Tammy, are you on the line? Est-ce que vous êtes là? And can you unmute yourself?
Tammy should be able to speak now.
Go ahead, Tammy. Bonjour. C'est à vous.
Thanks for this meeting. I just wanted to say I live in another stretch than what Steve Ott just shared by Ramsey Road, and I paddle at Cascades Club, as do my 7 and 11-year-old. We're seeing a huge increase of motorboats, wakeboarders, people doing a lot of donuts, and my 11-year-old who paddles with the club keeps getting knocked off his C1 or his K1 while he's trying to practice, and it's intentional. So I do think that the speeding on the river is getting worse. I am worried about safety for my own children, and I'm also worried about the environmental impacts. So I hope that, you know, these conversations can lead to some actions in the future.
Merci beaucoup. Merci beaucoup, Tammy. Thank you, Tammy. I'd like to now ask Kim Gunsel. Est-ce que vous êtes sur la ligne, Kim Gunsel? And if you are, please unmute yourself.
I am. Thank you very much. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Great. Well, thank you very much for the meeting, and thank you for starting this conversation. We, similar to Steve, we're near Larimac, and we've been on the river for, well, over 25 years now. And we know the stretch well from here down south as well to the Yacht Club. We're quite active there, and I work in a volunteer capacity as the youth program director at the club. And I have to say, you know, we don't have a lot of issues, actually. My sense would be, if you're looking for data and if you're looking for ideas, to definitely talk to some of the coaches at that club. And I can't speak for Cascade, but certainly their club as well. The river does, as we know, and you guys identified, it has very different characteristics in different stretches and certainly different issues. I think what really comes to mind to me is there's an education opportunity here for motorboaters and paddlers and swimmers. I think there's a lack of education for sure, but we have some great resources. We have eyes and ears, and when you've got, you know, staff out there coaching 8 hours a day, 7 days a week, that could be a great resource for FOG as well.
So Kim, just to let you know, could you wrap up your question and comments, or please?
Yeah, the only other comment I had was I do feel like with COVID and with the methodology and process of the survey, unfortunately, it's a great initiative, but we have missed many important people. And when I think about my neighborhood, where we've been for well over 20 years, my immediate neighbors on both sides, and we are on the water, were not aware of the survey.
Okay, so
some
Kim,
of them.
I'm going to interrupt and ask you, please, because we do have others to speak. So I'm going to ask you, but we'll move on to the next one. And I thank you very much. Merci beaucoup pour vos commentaires. Pour être équitable avec tout le monde, I want to pass on to the next person, please. So I'm going to ask Chantal Sicotte. Madame Sicotte, est-ce que vous êtes là? Voulez-vous, and please, s'il vous plaît, vous mettre en pleine voix.
OK, merci. Oui, bonjour. Je voulais participer en tant que personne qui travaille avec des gens d'une organisation qui s'appelle Coalition Navigation et qui travaille exactement sur le problème de la cohabitation et de la protection des rives dû au bâtillage des bateaux, et qui fait de la recherche et aussi des pressions auprès de Transport Canada, qui aimerait des changements de réglementation parce que la réglementation de Transport Canada ne s'applique pas à l'environnement en ce moment. Alors, j'aimerais... je pensais envoyer un message à Rita pour lui dire, je pense qu'on devrait avoir... Et puis aussi, si Jonathan Germain est encore... oui, il est encore là, il va parler après moi. Alors, je pense qu'il y a des liens à faire avec les efforts que vous faites et le mandat et les objectifs de Coalition Navigation. Alors, je voulais vous mettre à l'affût de cette organisation-là qui travaille exactement dans le même sens que les Amis de la rivière Gatineau. C'est tout.
Merci beaucoup, Madame Sicotte. Thank you very much. Puis, certainement, très intéressant d'apprendre de votre organisation. So now we'll pass to Colin Moses on the line. And if you are Colin, would you like to unmute yourself, please? Monsieur Moses, c'est à vous.
Hi there. I'm Colin Moses. I'm, I guess, from the earlier more recent use of the boat. We've been here for about 10 years now. I do sail, windsurf, kayak, canoe, motorboat. I have sort of two concerns. One, and I'm green. I'm concerned that the MRC has delegated its accountability to the FOG. And particularly with what I've heard today in terms of the responses, despite assurance of objectivity, that there's a predetermined outcome to these consultations. So what is the MRC exactly, what is their mandate in this consultation, and what things have they done to sort of assure that the entire populace is consulted? When I look at the representation of the data, there's a clear focus on the Chelsea-Wakefield community, a very limited consultation of our community over in Cantley, for example. And it seems we've restricted this to a specific area of the river. And so the municipalities that didn't engage north of the dam have been excluded when I'm not clear the rationale for that.
Colin, thank you for your question to Madame Green.
Would you like me to answer at this point, or?
Well, I thought we would go through everyone and then we could just respond after when people are, but if you wish, Madame Green, by all means, if you'd like.
I think I'll do a preliminary answer and then we could go in more in depth if needed. As I had mentioned, the municipalities of La Pêche and Chelsea adopted resolutions. Chelsea specified that it would be from the Chelsea Dam to the northern limit of La Pêche, because that's within our MRC. We don't have no jurisdiction beyond the northern limit of La Pêche. So there was a request that we go all the way to the Poggen Dam, but that's would be another MRC. And Cantley Council chose not to adopt the resolution, but the mayor gave a letter of support. So perhaps there wasn't the same take-up in the municipality of Cantley as there has been on the western side of the river. And perhaps fog isn't as well known in the municipality of Cantley. So, and have we given, free rein to a fog? The resolutions speak about a moral support. There's no financial support, but the request will need to come through the MRC. We haven't given our approval to whatever findings will come out of the FOG's work. And certainly that will have to be another step in the process. But this, we approved to begin the consultation process. And as I said in my opening remarks, we really intend that it is a conversation and that there isn't a final outcome other than protecting people and protecting the river itself. And that's for motorized as non-motorized vessels. But we can certainly continue that conversation. I'd asked you to email me and we could take that up also with the Mayor of Cantley.
Merci. Thank you, Madame Green. We'll pass now to Jonathan Germain. Est-ce que vous êtes là, Monsieur Germain? Et s'il vous plaît, vous allumez votre microphone.
Certainement. Bonjour, vous m'entendez bien?
Oui, on vous entend très bien.
Parfait. Donc, comme Mme Scott m'a introduit un peu, donc en effet, je travaille pour la coalition Navigation. Et après avoir, dans le fond, entendu votre présentation, je vois que nos initiatives sont très, très rapprochées l'une de l'autre. Nos considérations sont assez similaires et on peut certainement supporter votre organisation dans l'aspect de créer une espèce de campagne de sensibilisation et également un code de conduite volontaire. Donc, nous, on a même développé déjà un guide des bonnes pratiques de navigation qu'on est capable de vous fournir, là. Donc, j'ai également fait une soumission sur votre site web avec les coordonnées. Donc, je vous invite vraiment à me contacter pour qu'on puisse faire ça et coordonner le tout pour cet été. Merci.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Germain. Nous passons maintenant à Madame Vicky Kelly. Vicky Kelly, are you on the line and would you like to unmute yourself?
Sorry, yes, I'm here. Just a few quick things. So I'm in Wakefield. We've been on the river for many years. We boat, we have a sea-doo, we kayak, we canoe, we paddleboard, we do everything. I've seen no problems as well where we are. I think for us, our biggest issue is the floaters that leave Alcove and go through Wakefield. The garbage they throw in the river is unbelievable. The beer cans, it's a constant, we're constantly going off our dock, fishing them out of the water. So I think something really needs to be done about these people. They also trespass, they leave their flotation devices on the river. So I think that's a big issue. But really, I think education. There's a lot of people that rent paddleboards from Expedition. I don't think they understand that there's only certain places boats can go. There's certain channels that boats have to go because of the depth of the water. And I think Expedition needs to do a better job of explaining this to the people. I understand FOG has on their website etiquette for the river. These people do not live in La Pêche. They do not live in Chelsea. Many of them come from Ottawa. They have not read FOG's website. I think we need to do a much better job that these people coming that really aren't taxpayers. So I think education is the key here.
Thank you very much, Vicky. Yes, thank you for your intervention. Let's pass now to James Hargraves. Are you on the line and would you like to unmute yourself? Monsieur Hargraves, est-ce que vous êtes présent?
I don't see James on here, but...
Okay. Bon, passons maintenant. Ben, si James revient, on lui donnera la parole. If James comes back, we'll give him some time to speak. But why don't we pass now to Neil Faulkner? Neil, are you on the line? And if so, please unmute yourself.
I did find Neil, so he just has to unmute himself.
Yes.
He put his hand up.
There
we go.
Yes, we can hear you, Neil. Go ahead.
Okay, very briefly, I think it's wonderful that FOG and MRC have come together to work on this issue. The river has a huge importance in our whole region, not just the communities here, and it is a veritable jewel of a river. There's no question about that in every sense of the way, recreation, economy, the whole thing. This is the only way forward. You can't just leave it to the MRC or governments. It's us that use the river. We have to be stewards of the river. We have to be aware, and there are problems with that. The dialogue that has begun at the moment, I'm glad it's lasting for a year and a half. It'll definitely take that time, I believe, to get the ideas out and discussed. Everybody is free to have their view, but there's no question that the river has real potential dangers at the moment. They've all been mentioned.
And Neil, could I just ask you to finish up, please?
Yes. The other thing is we all have to be stewards to the river. That may require even registration of the powerboat people or whatever the group of users are. Thank you.
Thank you, Neil. We do have to move on because we've got a few more people to present. And I want to be equitable with everyone. So thank you for that. Robert Lee, are you on the line? And if so, please unmute yourself. Monsieur Lee, c'est à vous.
There. Good. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Excellent. Good. Thanks so much. I'll try to make this quick. There's so much to say. I ran 10Ks for a few years and I was painfully slow. I was like 52, 55 minutes in a 10K, but that told me that I was running about 10 kilometers an hour. It's painfully slow. So when we're looking at 10 kilometer an hour zones, and effectively what FOG is presenting right now is that we would be restricting 10 kilometers an hour pretty much from Farm Point right through to Wakefield Village. And it's going to be difficult to enforce. And I think education is going to be a far greater tool to use, and also may want to consider marshaling rather than necessarily having the police come and patrol at heavy cost. Perhaps there's a way to form marshaling groups, volunteers that are willing to be out in their boats and to be actually educating while they're out there. The other thing I wanted to mention very quickly is we must be very careful as we go through the process not to eliminate demographic groups from the discussion. And we in our society, everyone—
Robert, thank
Yes.
you very much. I will have to end for now.
Okay.
As we move on to the next one. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you.
Laurie Goff, are you on the line? And if so, please unmute. Madame Goff, so êtes-vous là?
I think Lori said that she decided not to speak in the chat because we asked her a question about the noise, I think.
Okay, excellent. Nous passons maintenant à Bonnie Panque. Are you on the line, Bonnie? And if so, please unmute yourself. À vous, Madame Panque.
I'm on the line.
So go ahead, we can hear you.
Okay. Thanks. Lots of good points have been brought up today. So I'll just try and focus on one that maybe I can speak to. I'm a canoeist. I'm on the river almost every day. And most of the encounters between canoes and motorboats are not an issue. The issue is that if there is a bad encounter, it's going to be the non-motorized who's going to pay the price, and it can be very severe. I personally have had at least 5 encounters where if I did not stand up on my boat, wave my paddle and scream, I am quite certain that I would have been hit. And the results would not have been pretty. So it's really important to understand that there's an outside impact of any issues between motorized and non-motorized vessels. And thanks to FOG for this initiative.
Thank you very much for that intervention. And we now, just a moment here, move to Mike Bedell. Mike, are you on the line? Êtes-vous là? Would you like to unmute yourself?
There we go. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Yeah, so yeah, I've lived on the river for 35 years. I'm an avid self-propelled person. But I think that the dynamics that are important are river etiquette and river ethics, and the fact that we've got a responsibility also towards the wildlife and the creatures that live on the river. And so I think through education, maybe through the schools, we could develop a volunteer program to teach the kids ethical and etiquette for the way we treat the river, and we're responsible towards each other in the community. My big concerns are speedboats traveling at high speed and sea-doos with issues such as kids that are put on these machines, and they're essentially handling a deadly weapon if they're at a certain age. So wakeboards also are a huge issue for me.
Thank you very much, Mike. J'aimerais remercier tout le monde qui a demandé de parler, de vos interventions, des idées très intéressantes, et vous êtes à l'écoute et vous êtes impliqués. Thank you everyone for all these comments. Clearly you're in active listening mode and engaged in offering ideas. Right now I'd like to ask Madame Green if she would have any comments to offer further to these interventions. And after you, then I'll ask Rita and then Bob to respond to what you've heard. Not necessarily answering the questions, but just responding to what you've heard.
I reckon I noticed in the chat that Mark wrote that a few people have their hands up as well. There's no more open questions, or is that?
I think the idea was that the three of you would sort of speak to what you've heard with these people who asked to speak, and then we would open it up.
Okay.
For a few more minutes.
Well, I really have very little to say. Just thank you for participating. We hope to continue the conversation. Alors, ce soir, c'est la première des consultations, et c'est important qu'on écoute et que tout le monde sent bienvenu de s'exprimer, parce que c'est une rivière qu'on partage, et il faut qu'on trouve les moyens de vivre ensemble dans sécurité et je pense en respectant l'environnement. Et comme plusieurs personnes ont dit, c'est la journée internationale des Premières Nations. Alors, je pense que c'est important de se souvenir que la rivière fait partie de notre patrimoine, et comme les personnes, les Premières Nations. Alors, c'est une approche aussi de respect pour l'environnement qu'il faut souligner. Alors, merci Fogg, merci à tout le monde. Thank you.
Merci, Madame Green. Rita, is there anything you'd like to offer now?
Well, I mean, there was quite a few good ideas that were presented, and I've been taking notes. We've been taking notes about really suggestions. I want to again highlight, when people say we should, well, we're a bunch of volunteers that really don't have an income apart from donations from people, from individuals. So we have limited resources, but if you want to be part of the solution, I encourage you to contact us and, help us. If we need to reach out to people that we haven't reached, then help us do that. If you know neighbors, why didn't you pass on the information to them? So we can only do what we can do with our limited resources. We would like as many people that are on this call and that are interested to reach out and try to help and be part of the solution. So if what I heard is education. Well, there are many ways of doing this. So, come and talk to us about how are we going to educate the paddlers? Well, do we have an idea of what we want to educate them on? Is there a brochure? Help us do that. Help us reach the people that we need to reach. And I think that's how we're going to be able to work through this, is reaching out to as many people as possible and working together and listening to each other. I really do think that this was a really good first meeting. there's all kinds of opinions, all kinds of sides, but I do believe that this is the first step of, understanding the needs and being respectful to each other. And as Mike said, we can't forget all of the beautiful animals and birds that we love to see when we're on the river. They are impacted too, and we need to make sure that we think about them as well.
So thank you very much, Rita. And before we pass to you, Bob, Rita, while Bob is speaking, would you like to look at the chat and just see what's there that could be responded to before we?
Yes, and also before, I wonder if Mark, you could just go to the next screen, because in order for you to reach out and help, there is our website, and also you can follow us on Facebook. And if you know people that need to be informed, tell them to follow us, and then we can communicate with them. And if you want to volunteer as well and help, feel free to contact us through those two methods.
Okay, so we'll now pass to Bob's comments, and then Rita, if you want to just have a look as we wrap things up at the chat and the few questions that are written, we'll come back to you, Rita. Okay, and then we'll wrap up this first consultation. So Bob, over to you.
Yeah, there weren't many kind of comments or questions that need a specific response from those presentations. I think the number of Q&A we have 80 answered at this point, and lots of chat, so great engagement and lots of good points raised. The only point I wanted to make, extending from what Rita ended there, was that on the FOG website, the new website, we have, again, as I mentioned earlier, a portal page dedicated to this project with all the information, presentations, everything is in that one spot, one place for easy access. So I encourage you to go there. If you just go to the website, and it's easy to find. If you follow anything related to the consultations from the homepage, you'll get to that page under our work, a boating safety consultation page. And on that page is a form inviting submissions, which I mentioned earlier again. So we were crunched for time today, and people maybe couldn't speak or speak as much as they wanted to, but that's open and ongoing. Encourage everybody who has more to say and contribute to use that form as a way to contribute to the process with a question or a comment or research or whatever it is. And so that's open. And if you have neighbors or friends who weren't able to join us tonight or engage in the survey, they can share their opinion or voice or information via that form as well.
Okay,
that's all.
Merci, Bob. Thank you. So Rita, over to you to see if there's anything in the Q's and A's and chats that we can answer now. We do have some time. We've still got a few minutes before 9:30, and I think it's important to wrap up with what are the next steps. Just reminding people of the next steps over the summer and fall.
Are we going to go to the people with their hands up first, or?
Yes. Yeah. Well, I think yes. Sorry. Yes, we've got the raised hands, of course. Yeah. Oops. Okay. So do you have? Oh, I'm not sure. I've got the list here. Oh, the participants, right?
It's under attendees.
Yes. Okay. So, Madame Bouvier. Vous aviez une question? Voulez-vous poser la question? Ah, voilà. Allumez votre microphone. Oui, voilà, Madame Bouvier. Merci.
C'est fait.
Oui.
En français or in English?
Ben non, c'est à vous de décider.
Well, it doesn't really matter to me. The thing is, I was wondering, because in my question, I did ask, because the problem seems to be the motorized boat. And I was wondering, do you know, between the two, let's say between Wakefield and Farm Point, did anybody ever was hospitalized, or has anybody died from a collision with a motorboat? Because I've never heard of any. And I've been on the river for quite a few years. As I said, 5 generations.
We can also, check with the police for police reports, but anecdotally, I haven't heard of a boat collision that caused a death. There have been a few drownings, but more from a swimming perspective. So that could be a follow-up to complete the information.
Yes, so I just want to say we are supposed to get, or we've asked to get some information from the police. But actually, number of deaths, is that really what we want to measure? I mean, that's way down the line. We would rather have statistics about, closer to prevention, in my opinion.
So thank you. Merci, Madame Bouvier. Thank you for your question. And Carrie Hodgins, would you unmute yourself, please?
Yeah, I was just thinking that it looks as though a lot of us have different perspectives of the river based on where we actually live on the river. And I think all of us experience what goes on with the boating in different ways. And I think maybe we should take that into consideration when we have conversations about this, because I would invite anybody to come and spend an afternoon on my dock during the summer, and you can see how many close encounters there are just due to the safety issues on both sides of non-motorized and motorized vehicles.
Thank you, Carrie, for that. I don't see any other hands raised, so we could perhaps look if there's anything, Rita, in the Q&As or chats that has not been addressed yet.
Yeah, there's Andy Ball. Did you want to say something? Because he's listed about 5 different things here. I'm not really sure what the question is. Andy, do you want to say something? Instead of me trying to read this and...
So unmute yourself. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, he
There
has
we
his
go.
hand up. There you go.
Yeah, no, Rita asked me to talk, so I guess I'll use my minute up. I've been on the river and using the river since 1977, living in the river for about 25 years. The thing is that the speed limit, if we're going to adjust it, which you're not saying regulatory, should be done to not encourage worse sports. So move people from water skiing to wake surfing, for example. The biggest stakeholders on the river are the waterfront owners. So you need to, they're the ones who are going to make or break any program you put in place. So you need their buy-in. We're the ones with the most to lose and the most to gain. I don't think anyone wants to live on a major boating river. I also think that we should also limit the number of boats that are on the river using an approach that's similar to what they use in Val-des-Monts on McGregor Lake, with scaled access fees based on boat size and residency, so that we don't get swamped with boats. And then my other point is that, if you're going to push for a cause, which is like wake reduction, the reality is that the major erosion, if we look on the east shore, the Cantley side, from Blackburn Creek down to the dam, the majority of the erosion is caused by the flooding of the dam, of the river in the first place. I mean, an acre slid into Blackburn's Creek last year, and there's no boat traffic in there. So we just have to be factually correct. Like, boat erosion may be an issue, but it is not the major erosion on the river. And, if we're going to put limitations, we also have to realize that there are people like at the Cascade Club and at the Gatineau River Yacht Club who use the boats as safety boats, and those boats will have to still operate.
So thank you, Andy, for your questions and comments. So Rita or Carol or Bob, anything to add? And are there other questions or comments, Rita, that you wanted to respond to right now as we head towards wrapping this up, because we're almost at 9:30?
Perhaps I can just respond, Andy, to your comparison to Val-des-Monts. It's very different to regulate a river as opposed to a lake. So there have been a lot of discussions. The UMQ has a commission on navigation de plaisance, but and that's been one of the big points that's raised, is how a river regulatory system structure it can proceed. So but great to have best practices and to learn from others. And the mayor of Val-des-Monts has been very helpful as well in this conversation.
Thank you, Madame Green. And over to you, Rita. Is there anything you'd like to respond to any comments or chats before wrapping us up with a reminder of what's unfolding over the summer.
I mean, like I said, there have been some good suggestions. There's a couple of suggestions that I think are worth following up. There was the idea of marshalling. There's the idea of, markers and more information on the river. All of this requires, a bit of organization and kind of resources, but very good ideas. And so I think this is a good start. And in terms of next steps, I believe that, well, as we mentioned, our volunteers are going to be around. We're going to be at the Farm Point boat launch on busy weekends. We're going to be trying to gather information around the river and, looking for volunteers there. We will continue to post on Facebook and our webpage as methods of communication. And we do expect to have some articles, more awareness articles in the lowdown. We do need to expand probably to our Francophone community. And if anyone would like to help volunteer to, help us translate and write communiques in other areas, it would be greatly appreciated, because right now, it's basically one or two people in FOG that are doing all of the communication. So I, encourage people to come and help, wherever there's gaps, that's where we need the help. So I think those are my,
Thank you. Merci, Rita. Thank you. I think just to remind everybody that this event tonight has been recorded and will be put up on the Friends of the Gatineau site. So for all of you who have neighbors and friends and others you would like to share this with, it will be available to be shared. And so over the summer, it's some voluntary initiatives that Rita has just spoken about, some monitoring and some gathering of data, and then more consultation in the fall. I think the first one is planned for September, and there will be advance notice. I think the Francophone media was mentioned, and I think that's very important. L'Écho de Kentley is probably a newspaper that would be important too. And Val, there might be something, there's also don't forget the Chambre Wakefield La Pêche and the Chambers of Commerce. Val-des-Monts has, Kentley I think has one. Chelsea has one. So there's other groups that can also be where the message can get out to. So I would like to thank as your facilitator this evening, en tant qu'animatrice ce soir, ça m'a fait grand plaisir. Je veux remercier tout le monde pour une écoute active, une présence et beaucoup de belles idées contribuées avec une volonté de continuer à jouir de notre rivière si précieuse, la rivière Gatineau. Donc, thank you. And thank you everyone for your very active presence, your active listening, your engagement, and your constructive contributions. It was an excellent evening, and I think we've launched something very interesting that over the next year or two will arrive at continued joy for all of us in using and living and being on this beautiful river that we want to keep safe and healthy. So bonne soirée à tout le monde. Thank you everyone, and have a great evening, and have a great summer. Bon été.
Merci, Lynn.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Lynn, for your efforts as well.
Oh,
and to the panelists.
Merci. Bye for now, everybody.
Bye.
Hey, Rita, do you need a hand with anything else, do you think, today? Or
No, I think basically I just have to stay on because then the recording comes down to my my computer. So
Okay.
it's gonna have to stay on. But no, there's thank you very much for all your help. I think it went pretty smoothly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we can chat later.
That sounds great. Yeah, keep in touch.
Okay.
I guess I'll see you at least in 2 weeks.
In 2 weeks, that's it.
Awesome. Have a good one.
Okay, have a good one. Bye-bye.